I recently got to take a trip up north to go ride a bunch of roller coasters and get quite a few new credits. 5 days, 5 parks, and 4 Zamperla family coasters later, I have officially managed to surpass 200 credits. We rode a total of exactly 50 different roller coasters over the course of this trip, including 38 new credits for me. I made my first visits to Knoebels, Dorney Park, and Six Flags Great Adventure, as well as getting to return to Hershey Park and Six Flags America for the first time in over a decade. It was a ton of fun, and out of all the coasters that reside in these parks, there's only one I didn't get the chance to ride, which I'll discuss later. This video will be a more generalized recap of my trip and experience at each of these parks. I'll soon be coming out with more focused videos about the roller coasters in each of these parks soon, so make sure to come back and watch those when they come out. The first day of the trip, my friend and I flew into Philadelphia and then drove up to Ellisburg to spend the remainder of the day at Canobyl Amusement Resort. The park is kind of out in the middle of nowhere and had a very scenic and nice looking drive leading up to it. Walking into the park itself felt a lot like walking into a county fair that just has a towering vertical drop coaster at the front. Canobyl was devoid of that corporate park feeling you'd get from larger chains like Six Flags and Cedar Fair, which is a really nice change of pace from the norm. It had a very nice setting, being surrounded by hills and trees, and just gave off a really nice feeling of being in the country is the best way I can describe it. Unfortunately, when we got there, we had some bad weather on the horizon, which caused all the rides to shut down while we were waiting in line to make Flying Turns our first coaster of the trip. After the rain stopped, however, the staff made a really good effort to get all the rides back open quickly, and we ended up having enough time to do everything we wanted and then some. I'll go more in depth on them in a later video, but the park of course had some amazing roller coasters to offer. 6 coasters in total and 4 that I would consider major attractions. The biggest thing we noticed is that even though this is a small park that contains 3 wooden coasters, Knoebels had every single one of them running extremely smooth. It's cool that they take care of their coasters in a similar way that Holiday World does, and I was especially surprised with how well Phoenix was running. We stayed until closing time, and a nice touch that we got to experience on the way out is that even though it was a few minutes after the park's official closing time, they were still allowing people to ride Impulse, the coaster at the very front of their park, on the way out. I thought it was a very nice touch that allowed us to get one more ride before leaving. The only nitpick I would have is that Phoenix and Twister were only running one train, but even still the lines were all very short, so it never caused us to have to wait very long. Knoebels is overall a very enjoyable park that has me wanting to come back for future visits. During the trip, we stayed in Harrisburg as sort of our base of operations. This was mostly because for days 2 and 3 we were at Hershey Park. I had been here way back in the day in 2011, but of course they've added some pretty major rides since then. Our first day there was on a Thursday, and we had considered buying the Fast Pass just to be safe, but I'm really glad we didn't because the lines were just non-existent all day. We managed to hit every single roller coaster in the first 4 hours of the day or so, and then just got to walk around getting plenty of re-rides on the Star coasters for the rest of the day. During this time, I got to make the Intamin Wing Coaster Skyrush my 200th credit, and definitely made a great choice for that milestone. We had great weather all day except for an hour-long rainstorm at 5 o'clock or so that ended up clearing out the park even more than it already was and allowed us to get a couple of sunset rides on Candymonium. Getting re-rides was very easy because we found most of the coasters in the park to be rather smooth with the exception of Comet, which was quite rough. There was a bit of a rattle on Skyrush, but I didn't think it was anything bad enough to affect the ride experience a whole lot. Our second day at Hershey was on Friday and the park was significantly more crowded than the previous day. We decided to just take it a bit slower this time and allow time to do other things while the lines were long. After getting some morning rides on the coasters, we decided to take a break and go buy all the things we wanted from the gift shop and do the chocolate making tour at the World of Chocolate while the park was at its busiest midday. I would highly recommend taking this route if you plan on spending multiple days at Hershey Park. This is absolutely one of the best parks I've been to overall. It has a top tier coaster lineup and the park in general is just one of those that feels great to be in, similar to like Islands of Adventure, but maybe not quite on the same level. The ride-ups are pretty middle of the road for the most part, not exceedingly great but not bad either. Most of the ride-ups do well not to staple you, especially on Wildcat's Revenge, which I appreciated very much, and I definitely think that's going to affect my ranking of it. I managed to get plenty of room during all my rides to experience that airtime in its fullest capacity. We overall had an amazing 2 days at Hershey Park, and this is absolutely one of the best parks in America, if not the world. Day 4 saw us driving down to the soon-to-be-closed Six Flags America. My friend was really wanting to experience a Vekoma Flying Dutchman before they go extinct, so Batwing was the main draw for us here. The park was quite charming in a way, even though it has a pretty lackluster coaster lineup. The employees and ride operators were all very friendly and would have conversations with us while we were waiting in line. We'd often be waiting in the station by ourselves for a minute since over half the coasters were running one-train ops. The park was fairly empty as expected, so we got to take our time walking around it without having to wait in any lines, and luckily, which made those one-train ops bearable. As I've seen them doing recently, they scheduled Batwing to open an hour after the park did, so we made sure to be ready as soon as it opened. And it's really good that we did that because it was no more than like 15 minutes after we rode that the ride broke down. I'm really grateful that we got to ride it, and it was super fun and surprisingly smooth. I was very surprised with how I ended up ranking the coasters in this park, as some very positively surprised me or disappointed me. I'll be coming out with a ranking of the coasters in this park soon, so make sure to stay tuned for that. It was an overall nice experience at Six Flags America, and it's kind of sad to see that this park is closing. Once we finished up getting all the credits there, we decided to leave early to head to Dorney Park for the evening. We had originally planned to go there on day 5 before our flights home, but we had the epiphany that we could squeeze in Six Flags Great Adventure on day 5 and ride the legendary El Toro if we could do Dorney Park at the tail end of day 4, so that's exactly what we did. We ended up getting 4 hours at Dorney from 6 p.m. until they closed at 10 p.m. We had more than enough time to get rides on all the coasters and even get on Demon Drop, which is a cool experience. When it comes to the coasters, I'd say that much of what this park has to offer are just kind of average when it comes to comparing the coasters to other rides of the same model. Regardless, the coasters were all fun to get some rides on, and it was especially cool experiencing my first Morgan Hyper and Steel Force. We even got a couple of night rides on it, which just added to the experience. A hot take I have is that I actually had more fun on Steel Force than I did on Nitro the following day. The coasters all seemed to be running well, especially when it came to Iron Menace, because I didn't really notice the rattles that others had been talking about. There was one weird jolt on the transition of the brake run, but aside from that it was actually quite smooth and had a solid layout for a dive coaster. I enjoyed the setting and layout of Dorney Park as a whole, and even though it's a smaller Cedar Fair park, it's definitely a nice one to make a visit to. Finally, on the last day of the trip, we got to drive up to Six Flags Great Adventure to spend the part of the day we had before going home. My friend was nearing his 100th credit, so we decided to make El Toro his 100th by riding some of the other coasters in the park first. We started out by getting on the new for 2025 Flash Vertical Velocity. This is my second New Age Vekoma, with the first being Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood. It was a very fun coaster and had some great elements, even if it wasn't the most intense ride I've ever been on. The zero G stall while going backwards was absolutely the best moment of the ride for me. Flash gave us a great first impression for the park and had us excited to get on everything else. Unfortunately, Flash would eventually prove to be the best part of this park. We were sadly disappointed by ride after ride as we made our way around the park. Batman had a really strong rattle and ran so slow that it honestly felt like it was going to valley. Nitro's airtime didn't really hit at all, and Jersey Devil was straight up painful with those restraints. The locker policy on Joker and Jersey Devil was also very frustrating, having to pay for a locker instead of just setting your stuff in the station like you can on every other ride. But the biggest blow was that once we made it to El Toro, we found out that it was going to be closed all day. Naturally, this was a very frustrating moment for us since El Toro has been such a major bucket list coaster for me for years. We heard that it's supposedly having some track issues and they're having to do some work on that. The saddest part is that it had been open the previous day, and as of the time I'm making this video, it has not reopened. With everything mentioned, along with the removal of King Dakar and Green Lantern at the end of last season, Six Flags Great Adventure gave a very disappointing experience. My friend and I made some plans to get back up there for a day in August if El Toro reopens, so fingers crossed that the park can get it fixed by then. If anyone watching has any knowledge of what's going on, I would love to hear it. Regardless of the bad day though, I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to get back to this park and have a better experience next time. This was an overall amazing trip where we were blessed with good weather and a manageable wait times for the most part. I got to get 38 new credits and cross the 200 coaster threshold, which feels like a great accomplishment. This is easily the longest coaster trip I've taken so far, and I hope that I'll be able to plan more trips like this in the future and get on even more new coasters. If things go as planned, I'll at least get a few more major credits this year, including El Toro, Iron Gwazi, Stardust Racers, and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Make sure to stay tuned for a more in-depth dive to my coaster rankings in each of these parks from the trip. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.